Having binges is part of the process of conquering binge eating. Having strong urges is part of the process of conquering binge eating. Overeating, eating way past fullness, is part of the process of conquering binge eating. Having actually more food thoughts is part of the process of conquering binge eating. And I want to share with you guys very real and honestly what this journey of conquering binge eating actually looks like. Because people have this false representation of what it actually looks like to conquer binge eating. And as someone who has gone through this journey themselves and is now binge free, as someone who works with clients from all around the world in conquering binge eating, I know firsthand what this journey looks like. And I'm shooting it to you guys straight. So get freaking ready. People have this misconception that I'm going to wake up one morning, I'm going to decide that I'm ready to conquer binge eating, and I better not ever binge again. I'm going to wake up one morning, I'm going to decide that I'm ready to conquer binge eating, and I better not overeat. I better not have any urges. That is so unrealistic. Binging is part of the process of conquering binge eating. Overeating is part of the process. Having crazy food thoughts is part of the process. But you think just because you have decided, I am ready to conquer binge eating, I am so done with binge eating, I'm ready, I'm going to do this, it's important for me, it's important for my family, I'm ready to do this, you're expecting yourself to just magically flip a switch and to not have any binges just because you decided you're going to conquer. Will you get to a point where you never binge again? Absolutely. Will you get to a point where you don't have any urges? Yes. Will you get to a point where honestly food is like you're not even thinking about food, it's the easiest part of your day? Absolutely. But as you are working on rewiring your brain, urges are going to pop up. You're going to have a session of overeating. You're going to still have to navigate urges. You're going to end up binging. But you think, oh, why is this urge here? You're like frustrated. Why is this urge here? I decided yesterday that I was going to conquer binge eating and now I have this strong urge. And then you end up binging and you feel like you failed. And what I see often with even a lot of my clients that I work with is when you start learning these tools, right? Like you know you shouldn't give in to the urge. And if you do, you feel even worse about yourself because you're like, I know better. And if I know better, why am I not doing better? I remember feeling that way. I'm like, it's different if I was oblivious and I didn't know what to do. But when you know what to do and you're not doing it, like that feels challenging to navigate. Feels very challenging to navigate. And so you can't expect yourself to not have urges, to not binge, to not have food thoughts for the first little bit. And how long that is differs from every single person. But if you are expecting yourself to just decide you're going to conquer binge eating and never have an urge, especially at the beginning, like that's not realistic. Like I said, you will get to a point, like you will, once you learn how to rewire your brain and you eliminate your urges, they're going to stop popping up. Food isn't going to be the first and last thought on your mind. You are going to be able to effortlessly stop when you're satisfied. That is going to happen. But you expecting it to happen a day after you committed, a week after you committed, it's not realistic. And then you feel bad and you're judging yourself. You feel like it's not working. You think I failed. You think I messed up. And you're not doing anything wrong. You guys, as someone who has gone through this process, I am here to tell you it is part of the process. Overeating is part of the process. Binging is part of the process. Having strong urges is part of the process. Now, when you put in the work to shift your mindset around food, you're rewiring your brain, right? You're practicing not giving into your urges. You're tuning into your body. You're stopping when you're satisfied. Then of course, you're going to eventually not have the urge to binge. You're going to be able to, effortlessly stop when you're satisfied, no matter how freaking good the food is. That will happen. But where are you putting unrealistic expectations on yourself? It's literally so unrealistic to think, I am on this journey of conquering binge eating, and I better not have a binge again. So it's not about not having the binges or not having the overeating or not having the food thoughts. It's about navigating through that. So person one can have a binge and they're like, oh, I'm so frustrated. Like, what the heck is wrong with me? I said I was going to do this. I said that I was going to conquer. And they're like judging themselves. They're beating themselves up. They feel bad. So they stay stuck in the cycle compared to someone else that recognizes it's part of the process. Lorna says it's part of the process and it's part of the process. So even if you do binge, you don't beat yourself up. Now, you don't go on the other side of the spectrum. You're like, it's fine. It's fine. No, it's not fine, but it's part of the process. And how you speak to yourself after a binge is going to determine whether you have another binge or not. Having more food thoughts on this journey is actually very common. Sometimes people will share with me like, I'm working on my relationship with food and I'm thinking about food so much more. Like, is that normal? Well, if you think about it, if you are working on your relationship with food, that means you're going to be thinking about, okay, is this a craving? Is this an urge? Is this habitual? So you're thinking about food more because you're trying to be more intentional. If you are so used to maybe only binging on sweets in the evening, and then all of a sudden you want to try to, have them more throughout the day to take them off of a pedestal, you're going to be thinking about food more because you're like, okay, this feels weird. Normally I have it in the evening. Now I'm having it during the day. So this is the thing. It's like, it's common to actually think about food a lot more because you're paying more attention to hunger and fullness. You're paying attention to how certain foods make you feel. You're making peace with food. So having more food thoughts, especially at the beginning, is normal because you're working on your relationship with food. So again, where are you being unrealistic? I don't know why I'm thinking about food so much more. Like, I'm working on my relationship with food. Yes. You're thinking about food so much more because you're being more mindful, you're being more intentional, right? And so this is so important, and this is why, coaching with me and mentorship with me is so valuable, and this is why people love doing coaching with me, because if you try to do this on your own, you might have more food thoughts and think you're doing something wrong, and I'm telling you, you're not doing anything wrong. When you're trying to do this on your own and you're still having these binges and these urges, you're going to be beating yourself up. And I'm like, it's part of the process. You haven't fully rewired your brain yet, right? And so it's that reassurance of like, oh, I'm actually on the right path. So I wanted to share this with you guys, which I think is very important, of understanding what's realistic. It's also very common where you'll have a few days or a few good weeks with food. And then maybe lifes and you're emotional and you're stressed and maybe you do overeat. Maybe you do give into a strong urge. Maybe you feel so good with food and then all of a sudden you have a week-long binge, or maybe ice cream used to be a trigger food. And then you got to a point where you were eating it and you weren't feeling guilty. You weren't having these urges that was just kind of normal. And then all of a sudden you're more impulsive with ice cream again. It's part of the process. It's part of the process. Again, you will get to a point where you fully conquer. And what I mean by fully conquer, you never have an urge to binge. There's no foods on a pedestal. You easily stop eating when you're full and satisfied, I should say. You feel amazing in your own skin. Like, you will get to that point. Like, you're not thinking about food. You will get to that point. How long that's going to take you is different for everybody. And there was a comment here. Someone suggested try finding other coping mechanisms like walking, drawing. I actually don't recommend that because that is a distraction method. It doesn't actually eliminate your urges. That is like me saying, let's say you really want cookies. And you're like, instead of cookies, go take a bath. You might love baths, but that's not as pleasurable as binging, right? It's not as pleasurable as binging. And you might be in the bathtub and all you're thinking about is the cookies. So it doesn't actually get rid of the food noise. It doesn't eliminate your urges. You're actually thinking about food so much more. So it's not about finding a substitute, right? It's not about finding a substitute. It's about actually healing your relationship with food, rewiring your brain so your urges stop popping up so that you don't have to try to draw or hop in a bath or go for a walk. It's like, I don't even feel the urge to binge anymore. Because taking a bath is not nearly as pleasurable as binging. And we know that, right? So that's something to keep in mind. Okay. Are there any questions? I will stay on for a little bit more. Is there any specific questions? I don't recommend anything unrealistic, unsustainable. My approach to helping my clients conquer binge eating is through rewiring your brain so that you no longer feel an urge to binge. It's actually doing the work to practice not giving into your urges, and as a result, your urges will stop popping up. It's doing the work to add more pleasure in your life so that food is no longer the number one source of pleasure in your life. It's making peace with food, shifting your relationship with how you view certain foods so that they no longer become triggering. After a binge is a really good question, like how do you recover after a binge? The first thing, most people go into self-beat-up mode. How many of you guys beat yourself up? You're like, oh, why did I do that? You start judging yourself, you feel like crap. The best thing to do after a binge is try to eat as normally as you would. So most people, after a binge, the next day, they're going to be like, I need to get back on track and I'm going to eat like super perfectly and I'm not going to binge again. Again, you can't predict that. So the next day, if you're craving, let's say you have avocado toast for breakfast and then for lunch you're wanting a sandwich. Your mind might say, I can't have bread for lunch because I had bread for breakfast and I binged yesterday, so I probably am just going to have a salad. That's you not honoring your craving, and that can create another binge. So it's still honoring your cravings the next day after a binge. Change how you're speaking to yourself. As I was sharing at the beginning of this training, it's reminding yourself that binges are part of the process. So instead of being like, you did something wrong, you failed, you messed up, it's part of the process. What to do when we're stressed, because stress is a trigger. You have to learn how to feel. You have to learn how to process. So if you're stressed, you can do things like breathing techniques, of course, but what's most important is you need to set boundaries in your life. I talk a lot about this with my clients. If you are constantly saying yes to everything, right, you're going to be stressed. If you're people pleasing, if you're giving, if you have 25 things on your plate, it doesn't matter what technique you use. When you're stressed, it's like you don't have the capacity to do anything other than to use food to self-soothe. So yes, breath work is very, supportive when you are feeling stressed, but more importantly, it's setting those boundaries. What do you need to say no to? What is causing you stress? How can you set boundaries? How can you say no? How can you say no more? Right? Like people have, I work with a lot of clients who are like recovering people pleasers, and they always feel like I just need to say yes all the time. But that is actually causing you stress, and you don't have the capacity to do anything except numb out and self-soothe with food. How do I honor my cravings in moderation? Because when I give in to my cravings, I go all out. So I actually did a masterclass on this recently. The reason why when you give into your cravings, you go all out is because you're judging yourself and you're shaming yourself. So if you're craving, let's say, chocolate, and the entire time you're having the chocolate, you're like, you probably shouldn't be eating this chocolate. Because you feel like I shouldn't have been eating this chocolate, there's judgment. So you're not even tasting the chocolate. You get into the F it mentality, the all or nothing mentality, because I'm doing something wrong. I'm not going to just have a tiny little bit of chocolate. I'm going to have the whole box. And then tomorrow I'll do better. So it's really that mindset. And again, it's reminding yourself, like, I am safe to enjoy the chocolate. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm actually, one of my favorite things to remind my clients is literally telling them, and you can tell yourself this, I am preventing a binge later on. So most people will be honoring their cravings and they're like, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this. That judgment creates an urge versus I'm allowed to enjoy this. I'm safe to enjoy this, and you actually enjoy the chocolate. And you say to yourself, I'm preventing myself from binging later on. And that's very supportive. So, how can I still lose weight? Because I keep gaining and losing weight and end up binging every time. Well, you need to stop focusing on losing weight. And actually, you'll lose weight. It's so ironic. I support my clients on this all the time. They're like, how do I lose weight? Because every time I try, then I restrict myself, and then I end up binging, and then I'm not losing weight at all. Yes, because you're too obsessed with losing weight. Weight loss will come as a result of you no longer binging. Weight loss will come as a result of no longer losing and gaining, because that's actually very hard on your metabolism. Weight loss will come as a result of no longer eating way past fullness. You guys, I'm telling you right now, when you're no longer binging, when you easily stop eating when you're satisfied, you're not mindlessly snacking in the evening, the weight will come off, but you can't focus on that. When you focus on the weight loss, you're like, what do I have to eat? What should I not eat? Can't eat this, can't eat that. And then you're taking foods out of your diet. You're having these urges. You're ending up binging, and it's this constant cycle. How do I cut out excessive snacking at night? I eat proper filling meals, but my mind wants more. So a few things. So I actually have a client right now that I'm working with, and she's working through snacking late at night. And something that we were chatting through, and maybe you can relate to this, Rena. This particular client had a very unhealthy relationship with rest. So during the day, even though she was eating proper meals, she felt like she couldn't take a minute to just relax. She was always constantly doing something. And so come the end of the day, when she finally had time to just like breathe and relax, even though she had meals throughout the day, it was like this comforting thing. Like my mind still wants more. I still want to self-soothe because that was the only time that she was really giving herself to relax come late at night. So it's great that you're having filling meals throughout the day, but how is your relationship with rest? Are you having breaks throughout the day? Do you have pleasurable things that you're doing throughout the day? Because if not, finally come the end of the day, you're like, I just need to self-soothe. I need pleasure because I've been giving to everybody. I've been going nonstop throughout the day. And then come the end of the day, it's finally me time. And if you don't have a healthy relationship with rest, you don't know how to just be with yourself. And so it's like, I don't know how to just be with myself. So this feels weird. Like, what do? Just like twiddle my thumbs? So let me go into the pantry and let me eat something. People have such a hard time just being with themselves. We weren't taught how to just be. It feels foreign. It feels weird. You know, it's like I'm so used to just snacking. So if I don't snack one night, it feels weird. And that's where you have to lean into the discomfort. This is the process of rewiring your brain. So, amazing questions, you guys. This was fantastic. Thank you guys for asking all of them. If you missed the beginning, this is really all about what you can expect, what's realistic on this journey of healing your relationship with food, what's realistic. Binging is part of the process. Overeating is part of the process. Having strong urges is part of the process. Eventually, when you rewire your brain, you won't have urges, you won't be eating past fullness, you won't be binging anymore. But in the interim of you healing, urges will pop up, food thoughts will be there. And you have to recognize it's part of the process. You're not doing anything wrong. It's part of the process. Now, obviously, if you've been on this journey for a hot minute, right? And you're still having urges or you're still having food thoughts, well, you got to shift your approach because you shouldn't be on this journey for, a long time. And you're still you're still binging like crazy. That's not going to happen if you have the proper tools, right? So yes, it's part of the process, but then I'm not saying just wait a year and you're still going to have urges. No, if that is happening, you need the proper tools. And I teach this inside of my programs. All right, you guys, this was what I wanted to share with you guys for today's training. If you feel called and you're like, I am ready, I'm so done with binging, I'm ready to conquer, I am not interested in a few binge-free days here and there, I'm ready to do this sustainably, I'm all in, I'm committed, this is a top priority for me, I want to be part of a badass community of other women who are going through the same thing as me so I can really feel less alone, I want to work with a coach that has been through binge eating, that gets me, I'm the mentor for you, I'm the coach for you, so you can send me a message and I can share the different programs that I offer, and I can share, my root and rewire process and how I can help you rewire your brain to eliminate your binge urges. So thank you guys so much for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day. We'll see you guys soon. Bye, guys.